From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, November the 18th, 2020. We opened with a historic gathering in Israel, a trilateral summit led by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, with guests U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and the Foreign Minister of Bahrain, Abdulatif bin Rashid Al Zayani, both of whom arrived in Israel separately today. Netanyahu welcomed the momentous gathering in Jerusalem, which he noted was just 2 months after the historic signing of the Abraham Accords, normalizing ties with Bahrain.
This is the first ever official ministerial visit from the Kingdom of Bahrain to the State of Israel. It marks another important milestone on the road to peace between our two countries and peace in the region.
Pompeo spoke of the wonderful opportunities for commerce and economic developments that the accord now allowed, and the accord's message to Iran.
These agreements also tell malign actors like the Islamic Republic of Iran that their influence in the region is waning and that they are ever more isolated, and this shall forever be until they change their direction.
Pompeo also noted some practical measures being made since the signing of the accords.
The United States welcomes the exchange of letters that will enable the opening of embassies in each respective country, a truly historic step for building warm and fruitful diplomatic ties.
Bahrain and Israel agreed earlier today to open mutual embassies during a meeting between Al-Zayani and his Israeli counterpart, Gabi Ashkenazi. Al-Zayani also noted in his remarks the diplomatic milestone, as well as the beginning of flights and a visa program to make it easier for Israelis and Bahrainis to visit each other's countries.
To kick-start this process, I am happy to announce that commencing from the 1st of December, the e-visa system will be implemented in both Bahrain and Israel to allow for our citizens to travel freely between the two countries. In addition, we will soon witness the reciprocal opening of the two countries' embassies. It is through such foundational context that we can begin to nurture and build the networks of investment, business, tourism, culture, and so much more that can further solidify and add value to our joint efforts.
The Bahraini foreign minister also stressed how working towards peace between Israel and the Palestinians was a vital step in the process and urged the leaders of both parties to restart peace talks.
I continue to emphasize in all my meetings that in order to achieve and consolidate such a peace, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict needs to be resolved. I therefore call for both parties to get around the negotiating table to achieve a viable two-state solution, as is also sought by the international community.
Al-Zayani met earlier today as well with Israel's President Reuven Rivlin, who shared his hopes for the future.
Mr. Foreign Minister, the world is full of hate. The world is full of war. But I am so very proud, and I'm so very honored, and yes, even excited. And I must say, I've passed many, many events, and I'm very, very excited that our two nations have shown the world that there is also a time for peace.
The IDF retaliated early this morning for mines that were planted within Israeli territory in the Golan Heights in an attempted attack on Israeli troops. And in a rare move, the IDF shared video of some of the airstrikes on Iranian and Syrian targets in southern Syria early this morning in response. As we reported to you, the explosive devices were uncovered and dismantled yesterday in the buffer zone between Israel and Syria within Israeli territory. IDF spokesperson Jonathan Conricus told the foreign press that 3 anti-personnel improvised explosive devices were discovered near an Israeli military position in the Golan. He said the actual planting of the IEDs was done by Syrian locals, but the guidance, instruction, and control was by the Iranian Quds Force. The IDF also tweeted an aerial image of some of those devices, writing that Israel and Iran don't share a border. In fact, Tehran is 1,000 miles from Jerusalem. So why did an Iranian-led Syrian squad plant this IED on the Israel-Syria border? Because, the IDF wrote, Iran's terror knows no border. Luckily, the IDF added, we're here to stop them. Israel's Minister of Defense, Benny Gantz, today welcomed the announcement from the Palestinian Authority yesterday of it resuming security and civil coordination with Israel after suspending those ties back in May over talk of Israel extending sovereignty to parts of the West Bank. In August, as part of the normalization of ties with the United Arab Emirates and with Bahrain, Israel said it was suspending any such plans. Gantz today tweeted that he has devoted much effort towards renewing the coordination with the Palestinians. He tweeted, it should be emphasized that the coordination between us and the Palestinians is a common interest, also for the citizens and security of Israel, and no less so for the interests of the Palestinian residents and the Palestinian economy. Gantz tweeted, as I have done in the past, out of a sincere commitment to Israel's security, I once again call on the Palestinian leadership to return to the negotiating table for a better future in the Middle East. Well, the Jewish Agency for Israel has launched a new initiative to help with the challenges of the coronavirus pandemic. J-Ready, the Jewish Emergency Network, aims to help Jewish communities across the globe that are hard hit by the pandemic, as well as to help with general emergency preparedness and rehabilitation. Chairman Isaac Herzog said, our sages taught us that all Jews are responsible for one another. The Jewish Agency is harnessing Israeli know-how and expertise to realize this important Jewish value and to ensure the safety and well-being of Jewish communities around the world. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Wednesday, November the 18th. At 7 o'clock, author Meryl Ain reads from her novel, The Takeaway Men. For Jewish Book Month, that's with Rabbi Avraham Bronstein from the Hampton Synagogue. At 7:30, author Anita Diamond talks about her book, The Boston Girl. At 8, President of Haifa University, Professor Ron Robin, talks about diverse ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds of its student body with Tommy Ben Chaim of Israel's Embassy in Washington in a program of the American Friends of University of Haifa and the Israeli Embassy. At 9, Mark Golub speaks with Steve Boehm, Eric Yaffe, Betty Ehrenberg, and David Afun, who discuss the ways in which the Biden administration may change U.S. policies on Iran, funding the Palestinians, and on details of a two-state solution from those of Donald Trump. At 10:30, Gabrielle Safran discusses the Jewish way of speaking and its impact on others. And coming up next, it's Thinking Out Loud. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, November the 18th, 2020. I'm Teisha Bader. Stay healthy. Stay well.